Let's go into some foreign policy and talk about Trump's stance on Cuban medical missions. So, Trump administration, they expanded visa restrictions to target Cuba and developing countries, for example, like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, who participate in these missions. The US government labeled Cuban doctors as forced labor, claiming that the Cuban government exploits these medical professionals by keeping a significant portion of their earnings. And so what he's trying to do is to revoke visas for these developing countries' government officials, stating that he's going to impose these restrictions if they don't follow what they're saying and stop having these Cuban doctors working in these developing countries. What do you think about that?
Well, let me say that I thought the fight with Cuba was over. When we were discussing this earlier, I was like, "What? Like, why is Cuban in the news?" So, I think you should share what you told me about some of the things that Cubans do, like the doctors in developing countries. I think give people more education about that.
Yes, it's a global impact, and it's important to know that Cuba, they deploy at least 24,000 doctors to 56 countries worldwide. These medical professionals have been instrumental in responding to global pandemics. For example, COVID-19, when they had the Ebola outbreak, they played a vital role in curbing these diseases. And so growing up in Jamaica, you'll have the Cuban doctors there to take care of you. So with them imposing these sanctions, it's going to affect the CARICOM market. Not only Jamaica, you have Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, and some of these government officials, they're actually putting their foot down and they're saying that they're not going to stop this mission because it plays a vital role in the Caribbean. So people are willing to give up their visas. I'm not sure how serious they are, but yes, some government officials said that they are willing to, give up their visas because doctors, they play a really critical and vital role in their healthcare system.
I've never thought we as a country would be on the side of not helping and supporting. The America I grew up in, we were always the country that fought for the underdog. We fought for development. We fought for countries to be able to, sustain themselves and to be able to care, health wise, economically. It's really heartbreaking to see that we would be as a country, not we people, because I don't think a lot of people in this country support that, but I think we as, the United States being shown out into the world today is not for that. And that is actually what's crushing for me to hear.
Yes. And if you should ask anybody from the Caribbean about Cuban doctors, they all know. They all know the role they play in our society. And so for them to be saying that they're going to revoke visas because we need to stop having Cuban doctors in our countries, it's very heartbreaking for us.
Yeah, I get that. How do you get to a point or place where you want people harmed? So I'm trying to figure out, like, in my mind, the medical field is a field that we want people to not only enter, but we want people to be able to use that skill set to help others. That's been at the forefront of most medical providers, is to help, to heal, to cure if we can, and to say that I want to create another barrier in order for people to get healing. I just don't feel like that's God's work. We're in a position, in a place where you have people helping. It's like, why touch something that's not broken? Like, there's no one complaining. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, you got to help me. You got to, again, school me. If people are complaining, being like, I don't want the doctor's helps, like, I don't think that is. But if that is the case, then I can see how we, who is not even our problem, right, are interfering with something that doesn't even really involve us.
I guess what they're really saying, it's like forced labor, but I've never seen anywhere where this is reported. I did some research and I didn't see where this is considered forced labor.
Now, what's real and what's said, I think that that's the bigger issue that we might have to kind of like think about addressing. Remember, in order for someone to support something, we have to get people on the side to see that there's a problem with it. even if there might not be a problem with it, right? But if I say there's a problem without evidence and I get you to believe it through whatever it is, then you may start to believe that it is. But oftentimes, this is why getting news and actually having people do the research behind the news is super important. Not necessarily just believing what we see, but actually doing some research behind what we see to find the actual facts of it. If someone says something's forced or is forced labor, I would want to hear from the people that actually are doing the work.
Exactly. Do they actually know that they're being forced?
Listen.
So I just want to wrap this up by saying it's heart wrenching for us because if you take away those doctors, I don't know what these countries will do going forward with their healthcare system.
I just don't think it's God's work. If you're putting something out here, it is not hurting anybody. It's actually doing the opposite, which is helping. You're breaking down barriers. And again, to create another obstacle, just so people can fight harder in order to get what they need. I don't see the value behind it. And that's what's troubling to me. If you had Cuban doctors boycotting, I'd be like, yo, we got to pay attention because you got the people who are actually doing the work saying, hey, you know what? I'm not getting fairly treated. Then there's an issue. But you have someone else that's not a part of it saying that y'all not. And maybe I'm off again. Please, if I am off, help me. Because if there are things that we have not found yet to say that these Cuban doctors are actually complaining and they actually don't want to be doing the work that they have been doing probably for decades and years, then we got to obviously give them a platform and a space too.
Right. I mean, I see it as a symbiotic relationship. We benefit, they benefit. Why break something that has been working for years?
But you haven't really looked at our government. I mean, our government is basically being broken right now, and it's been working for what, hundreds of years? So, I mean, it would fit the course.
Yeah. Unless they're going to come up with some bright idea or some alternatives, then I'm willing and I'm ready to listen and see what's going to happen to these countries when they stop the Cuban mission.
Is the goal to make the weaker countries weaker?
Hmm.
I just thought about that right now. Like,
Yeah. Why? You know,
this is wild.
I just want the developing countries to have what they had before, and just for the Trump administration not to break anything in the Caribbean.
You mean you don't want them to touch the stuff that's not theirs to touch?
Right, because this has been working for the Caribbean communities for years, and it's been there. Cuban doctors are the greatest.
All right. Awesome.